Okay, so just wanted to make a quick one really. War is totally fake. And I know people are gonna say, oh my god, people are dying every day. Ah. I haven't experienced war directly. But what I do know is that the media lies, the governments lie, and the same people that can tell you that they walked on the moon tell you that 1 million people have died. Same people that lied about the fake pandemic and all that crap. What makes you think that people are actually dying? You can't unless you can confirm it independently. Yes, I mean, if they drop a bomb somewhere, yes, there might be casualties, but I don't think it's anywhere near the numbers they say. I think it's a bit like 1984, where there's a state of perpetual war between these so-called superpowers, but they're not superpowers because the superpower is you. That realization is really important, and you realize that it's fake because, and I'm gonna go on to explain why I think it's fake. So let's start from the beginning. So you have two countries, right? Country A versus country B. I'm gonna use Syria, actually, the Syrian war, which kind of has come to an end, but nobody knows when it ended. But let's use Syria as an example. So I can't remember what the reason even was because it feels like such a long time ago. But and it will go on to like terrorists or guerrilla groups and that kind of thing. So imagine you got a country like Syria, and I think the government say the president is not playing ball. Let's assume that everything's real and everything's legit. So the president of Syria is not playing ball. Like Gaddafi, he says, I don't want your shitty monopoly money. I want you to pay me in gold. So the US decide to like bomb his convoy and kill him. But then before they did that, they're saying that, oh, he's a dictator and his people are not happy. So what happens? Essentially, they go there and they find a mishmash of people that don't like the government, or sometimes they even introduce people into the country, paid mercenaries, and say that it's a group of people that don't like his governance. They equip them with AR-15s and guns and weaponry, intelligence, and the people start to wage war against the government, which is war by proxy, right? So what happens is these people start to kill government personnel, soldiers, that kind of thing. So then the government might respond by bombing some of their hideouts and stuff like this, right? But usually these people will hide out in apartments or buildings and use humans, other people as shields, right? So there'll be casualties. This is assuming that everything is real, yeah? And I say it's fake because how many bullets do the terrorists have? Let's say this resistance group, how many bullets do they have realistically? And how many bullets does the government have realistically? Like, you're not going to keep shooting at each other for like, this is not Call of Duty. You need to reload, right? So how many bullets do you have? And even if you're to buy weapons, or you're getting a reload from your overlords in the United States or NATO or wherever it is, it takes time to get the weapons or the ammo into the country, right? It's not just instantaneous. It's not Call of Duty where you could just like re-up within like just there, right? So on that basis alone, it's fake. Because if you run out of ammo, what do? Because the government, I would assume that, common sense would dictate that they'll probably have an armory, they'll probably have an arsenal of weapons, so they can keep going longer than you can, the terrorist group, right? And if the terrorist group that's being funded has, a good supply of weapons, where are those weapons being kept, and how have those weapons been able to enter the country without the government even being able to detect it? Like, where's the intelligence apparatus? Where is it? It's ammo, it's armor. You have to keep it somewhere. It's not just like a pencil, or it's large stock of weaponry. Where is it, right? So if that's the case, right, then essentially you attack those places, you know, and I'm not a military strategist, I'm just a person, a thinking person. So you attack these places, or even let's say you can't attack it, but then you're just out and out firefights here and there. You run out of bullets. So when you run out of bullets, what happens? Does the war stop? Like what happens in that stage? And what happens? Do they fight do they fight until the bullets are finished? You know, because then they have these things called corridors where they can evacuate sick and injured people, you know, civilians in the name of the Geneva Convention. But what tends to happen is the people that actually fight and usually kind of like use that as a way to get out of the conflict, which in essence also proves why it's fake. Because if you are fighting me, yeah, you've come into my home to try and hurt me, right, and my people. Like, what makes you think I give a shit about some Swiss person telling me, oh, you're not supposed to hurt him if you're not supposed to kick him in the balls or kick him in the teeth? That's absolutely crazy. That just adds to the fakery to me, because it's such a weird way of thinking that, oh, let's try and be humane whilst we're being inhumane. It's such a weird dichotomy. I can't rationalize it. But anyway, so that's assuming it's legit, yeah? So then how do you fight? Like, surely people have to stop and eat. People have to, you know, people still, because you go to these areas where they're fighting wars, and people still go to the markets at certain times. So it's almost like, oh, we're going to fight, but we're going to stop between the hours of this time and that time so people can go about their business. So that means it's not a real war then, because it's a staged fight. It's a bit like a boxing match then, isn't it? Because you have to have like a little pause, and then you have to have a bit of water, and then you have a strategy. And that's a controlled environment. That's a fake fight. Do you get it? It's a fake fight, because a real fight has no such rules. It's a fight. It's an out and out fight. We're fighting to the death because we're killing each other, right? So it doesn't even make sense that these corridors and these stop times and ceasefires exist. It's fake. It's fake. It can't possibly be real. And that's assuming it. So this is stating if it's real. But if it's not real, and it's just these people just destroying property so they can, you know, rebuild and, you know, pillage the place again, and, you know, tax money and, you know, rebuilding and all this other stuff, and, you know, the mud flood people and the Tartarians will say that you're destroying ancient architecture and ancient buildings, which they did and which they do in places like Iraq, Afghanistan. Not so much Afghanistan, but in Iraq especially, they looted the first place they went to was the library, and not the library, the museums, and they took a lot of stuff, destroyed a lot of old buildings, because Iraq is a very old country. You know, the same with Syria. They destroyed monasteries and buildings and took a lot of stuff from the old world, you know. And so there are people that believe that these so-called conflicts are just used to basically do that, really, just, you know, destroy the place and rebuild it. A bit like, if you look at it, Germany, for instance, you know, Germany got rebuilt after the war because it got heavily destroyed. But if you look at Cologne Cathedral and you think, how did they build that at the time they built it, with horses and sticks and no cranes and no lorries and no tipper truck, no trucks and any of that kind of stuff, right? And they built the Cologne Cathedral. What other buildings did they have in Germany pre the destruction? Do you see what I'm trying to say? And it's almost like these wars are always in these very key kind of areas with a lot of history and stuff. It tends to happen. It tends to happen. I don't know if that's the only reason, but it definitely tends to happen, you know. But anyway, going back to the point, whether it's legit and you're following conventions, it's bullshit, because the conventions itself state things like, oh, you know, you have to allow for people that are injured, you can't detain people and stuff like that, you can't kill civilians and stuff like that. It's rubbish, because if that's the convention, right, the minute you drop a bomb or a drone strike, you've breached the convention, because you're killing innocents. It's not a targeted strike. You can do all the ground intel you want. Even if it kills one civilian, you've breached it. But there's no retribution or there's no punishment for the whoever's pulling the trigger or the country that's responsible for the strike. And they do this all the time. All the time. Right? Then you talk about detention of people. America had Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, and endless black sites all over Europe. Latvia, I think Poland, they have some there where they would just lift people that they said they suspected of terrorism, right? Breaches of this convention. So even the people, Western powers, NATO, whatever, don't follow this convention. So that in itself tells you that it's fake, because so who are those rules for? You understand? It's fake, bro. And then if you look at it from a logical standpoint in terms of actual food supply, weapon supply, movement of people and machinery and stuff like this, it's not real. Because if you look at the old world, what would happen? You'd have an army and two armies, and they'll literally run at each other with swords and knives, and they would literally hack and butcher each other till one group gives up. And that's what war is, right? There's no break like, oh guys, oh, so these guys, we've got a few guys that have broken limbs and, you know, torn limbs and stuff, so we need to stop and move them out, and then we'll carry on tomorrow morning. What kind of, that's what? You want to take my land? You want to kill my people? You want me to give you space to what? Nah, bro. We're hacking each other until you either take us by force, you kill us and we surrender, or you kill all of us, or we kill you. And that's what war is. Any other combination of circumstances is fake, because then it's a strategy, and then it's like an organized fight, which is like boxing or wrestling or MMA. You know, you can't poke him in the eye, you can't kick him in the balls, you can't headbutt him, you can't bite him. Then that means it's not a raw fight, then, isn't it? But then you say, oh yeah, there's the humane aspect of it. If you're talking about being humane, then being humane is not going to war in the first place. Don't you get it? It's like, how do you make sense of, how do you ever polish shit to make it palatable? You can't. It's shit. So you can't ever make something inhumane humane. You know, you're killing people because you want to steal their oil, or you don't like their leader, or whatever it is. You're killing people, right? But you're now saying, oh, because we're doing that, you know, we want these concessions. But if you have these concessions, is essentially to just basically allow you to reload and come back and then re-strategize, but then that's not a real fight. It's fake. War is fake, bro. It's fake. It's not what you've been told it is. It's fake. And that's just me from a thinking man's perspective, you know. And if you delve a bit deeper, it's like, okay, you have military personnel and shit like this and blah blah blah. Like, think about it, right? If me and a country, if I was the leader of a group or a country, and, you know, I was hearing things like, oh yeah, these people want to attack us and and, you know, the rhetoric was getting heavy and heavy and heavy and heavy and heavy. What do you think my first move would be? Do you think I'm just going to sit there and wait for you guys to bring planes into my country to come and start bombing my people? I'm sending assassins to your parliament to take you out. Whatever the cost, we're doing it. I'm sending people to take out your military bases. Like, think about it. This is just, anybody that plays chess or knows anything about strategy, this is obvious. The fact that you sit on your hands and wait for death and destruction to come is crazy. It's crazy. Then you look at the different types of other things, like, okay, like a guerrilla group or whatever. They don't follow any conventions, but then they will blame them for not following the conventions when the other group is using things like napalm on the people, like they did in Vietnam, you know, or, you know, indiscriminate killing of people and vegetation and everything, just destroy, poisoning people's water, right? All these inhumane things, but then it happened, right? Because of a disagreement or something that one group of people didn't like about it. It's so you can see that it's not really real. It's just basically one group or it's bullying basically. And then they try and change the rules and make it a bit more sanitized. And I think when it gets to a point and you have these two kind of like people that are both at the table, they're friends really, because if you think about all the world wars, quote unquote, you know, all these people, they were friends. Stalin met with Hitler and Churchill, they all had conversations. So it's like, if we can even sit in a room and talk, then we're not really at war, then are we? We're just like promoters of a fight, and that's what we're doing. We're just discussing the parameters of that, of how we're going to send our citizens to go and butcher themselves, right, in the interest of some political ideology or whatever it is, or resources or whatever. It's stupid. It's not real. It's not real, because I know that if I was the leader of a country and somebody wanted to wage war, there's no way I'm sitting in a room with you. For what? The minute you drop the blood of one person, it's war. You understand? Like, we're going to the death, old school way, and any other permutation is just not real. It's not real. It really isn't, and, it's like, all these proxy wars, and then, there's been a strike today, they bombed a bridge today. Da, 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 da. Why couldn't they do all of that in the first day of conflict? They had the ammo, they had the weaponry, they had the manpower, they could have done it that day. Like, what happened to shock and awe? So the fact that it gets dragged out, it feeds an agenda, it feeds an ideology, because whatever it is you're fighting for, right, you can achieve your aims in a very short space of time. War, anybody that knows anything about a fight game is, fights don't actually last very long. Even in the animal kingdom, fights don't last very long. It's very quick. It's like, and then in a very short space of time, dominance is asserted and it's over. But then for me, it's like how it can carry on for weeks and weeks and months and months and months and months and years. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. You don't need that. You don't need that amount of time to assert dominance. I'm sorry. You don't. You really, really don't. You really don't. You really, really don't. Because, and this is where you realize that it's a game, because if you're running out of ammo, you're buying more, weaponry and stuff like this, then you have to realize that who's paying for it is the taxpayer. So now the taxpayer has to become, you know what, we've got the military effort, we need to buy some more weapons from a defense company, and we need to do this, and we need to ship some more stuff, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like, so what about your armories? What about your military bases? What do you keep there? Do you not have weapons? Do you not have the manpower? So what's the point of a base then? What's the point of having all of that then? If you don't even, you're not even ready to be able to fight for, go all out and assert your dominance in a short space of time. And then, it's fake, man. It's fake. Anyway, I can go on about this for a long time, but the long and short of it is war is